Tonight we smear charcoal on your face, brush your teeth black, and lean into beauty rituals that would give your dermatologist a polite heart attack. You've stepped into Edo Period Japan, where elegance means commitment, and personal care walks a tightrope between genius and absolutely unhinged. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time too. I'm curious if anyone in Kyoto is nodding along right now. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The lanterns flicker as you kneel in front of a polished bronze mirror, squinting at your reflection. Your face glistens, not with sweat, but a sheen of soot. This is not a mistake. You've just washed your face, yes, with actual charcoal. Charcoal, known as sumi, is ground into a fine powder and mixed with water. The paste feels gritty at first, but there's a strange smoothness underneath it all. You rub it across your cheeks, your forehead, your jaw. It pulls oil and dirt from your skin like a magnet, and once rinsed, your pores look less like tiny rice paddies and more like polished porcelain. This method isn't some desperate kitchen hack, it's actually cutting edge for the time. Charcoal is cheap, absorbent, and, as modern beauty blogs now echo centuries later, weirdly effective. But wait, it gets better. While your face dries, you reach for a small lacquered box. Inside is the secret to a fashionable smile, a mix of iron filings, vinegar, tea, and sometimes a pinch of gallnut tannins. You dip a slender bamboo brush, stir the potion, and paint it across your teeth. Slowly, steadily, they turn the color of polished ink. This is ohaguro, the tradition of blackening teeth. To you, it might scream dental crisis, but in Edo, Japan, it whispers maturity, loyalty, and elegance. Especially for married women, painting your teeth black is as standard as slipping on a wedding ring. It says, I'm off the market, and I'm an adult, and depending on who's squinting, possibly, I drink iron for breakfast. Historians still argue whether ohaguro began as a fashion trend or a dental hygiene hack. The irony is, it might have actually helped. The tannins and iron coating your teeth form a kind of rudimentary sealant, protecting against decay. Not exactly fluoride, but in a world without electric toothbrushes, it's better than biting into sugar cubes and hoping for the best. You rinse your mouth with lukewarm green tea. It doesn't wash away the black. That's part of the charm. Your teeth are now a permanent part of your aesthetic. You flash a smile in the bronze mirror, ghostly and dark. Outside, in the cramped wooden corridors of the Mashiya townhouses, you'd see other black-toothed women gliding past. Their smiles might seem ominous to a modern eye, but in this world, they're marks of elegance and commitment. Now that your face and teeth are cleansed, you blot your skin gently with a square of washi paper. The charcoal's done its job, and your skin feels, let's not oversell, noticeably less grimy. You look respectable. Glowy, even. Charcoal also shows up in other sneaky ways. You've heard of women burning the ends of pine branches, collecting the ash, and using it as eyeliner. Not the waterproof kind, obviously, but with a little skill and the right humidity, you could get a decent cat-eye flick before heading out to market. But don't worry if your lines are shaky. Fashion here is more forgiving than it looks. Symmetry isn't everything, especially when your definition of beauty includes brushing soot onto your cheeks and vinegar onto your molars. You lean closer to the mirror again. That's not a freckle, it's a smear of ash. You laugh, lightly. One of the few perks of this messy ritual is that mistakes are invisible under candlelight. Everything is softer in the dark. Now, while your face rests and your teeth slowly oxidize to a deep bluish black, let's talk accessories. A small charcoal block sits nearby, not for your face this time, but to warm your feet. You slip it into a tiny brazier, place it under your robes, and wiggle your toes. It's not beauty-related, strictly speaking, But hey, what's more beautiful than someone who isn't visibly shivering? The warmth travels up your legs. The glow from the coals makes the room feel smaller, closer, safer. And as you sit back on the tatami, letting your freshly washed, slightly stained face cool in the draft, you wonder how many of these rituals will outlive the era. Will your great-granddaughter be smearing ash on her cheeks in the year 2125? Will someone mistake ohaguro for Halloween makeup? One thing's certain, cleanliness here isn't about smelling like flowers or glowing like a filter. It's about transformation. It's about embracing the practical magic in the everyday, the things no one else would dare try, but somehow, in this room, feel like common sense. Like brushing your teeth with rusty tea. You reach for a small, drawstring pouch, slightly damp, soft to the touch, and smelling faintly of warm grains. Inside, rice bran. Just the stuff left behind after polishing rice, the dusty coating that floats like snow in storage barrels. Tonight, it's your exfoliator. You splash your face again, not with rose water or a 10-step essence cocktail, but with simple, cool well water from a wooden bucket. Then you take that little rice bran bag and begin gently scrubbing. The pouch is made of a delicate silk or cotton net, porous enough to let the bran's fine particles and nutrients pass through, but thick enough not to break apart after one scrub. It lathers slightly. Not foam like soap, but a milky, creamy film that softens as you rub it into your cheeks, down your neck, and over your arms. You smell like warm rice pudding. You look like someone who's had an actual nap. This beauty trick, Nuka Bukuro, has been passed down in hushed voices across kitchen walls and garden fences. A favorite of courtesans, housewives, and even sumo wrestlers who didn't want to look like dehydrated turnips under arena lights. It's gentle, it's cheap, and it works. Rice bran is packed with natural oils, antioxidants, and a compound called gamma-oryzanol, which you can't pronounce because you're falling asleep, but trust me, it's good for your skin. Modern science even grudgingly agrees. Though historians still argue whether Edo women understood the why, there's no doubt they knew the what. Their skin was softer, brighter, and less prone to the rashy indignities of city grime. You rub in slow, circular motions. The sensation is oddly comforting, like tiny paper lanterns brushing your skin. And this method doesn't just clean, it conditions. A light protective film is left behind, shielding your skin from wind, sun, and nosy neighbors who want to know how you look so unnaturally radiant while doing laundry. At this point, you may be wondering, where does one get all this rice bran? You don't have to go far. After all, rice is life. Every household processes some form of it, and the waste, nuka, is abundant. In fact, some women even barter for the freshest bran, the softest, least gritty batches. Forget shopping for highlighter. In Edo, you trade gossip for grain powder. And this isn't just about faces. Rice bran bags are full-body experiences. You step into a wooden tub filled with steaming water, and the bran dissolves slowly around you, clouding the water like warm miso. You dunk the pouch, squeeze, and lather. Your legs feel like they're being coated in velvet. Your arms no longer resemble overcooked daikon. One fringe tidbit you're now sleepy enough to appreciate: midwives sometimes used rice bran baths on newborns. Soft, natural, unscented, just enough to wash off birth without stripping away those mysterious baby oils everyone keeps whispering about. Whether it's cleansing or ritual or both, who's to say? You step out of your mental bath. Skin now warm and pillowy. You dry off with a length of linen cloth, rough enough to stimulate circulation, gentle enough not to undo all that bran magic. And you can't help but glance again at the mirror. There's no shimmer, no contour, but there's a glow. It's the kind of radiance you can't fake. The kind that whispers, this person regularly scrubs themselves with leftovers. Before you finish, let's not forget the last delicious detail: the leftover bran bag. Still useful. Some tuck it into kimono drawers to keep them smelling clean and slightly sweet. Others dry it in the sun, mix it with herbs, and reuse it a few more times. Waste not, glow more. One joke drifting through the communal baths goes something like this. You are what you eat, but you're even more what you scrub with. And that might be true. Tonight, you're rice. Polished, fragrant, and unexpectedly luxurious. As the coals crackle softly and you sit, gently drying your skin in the low glow of candlelight, remember, nothing in this era comes easy. You carry your water, heat your bath, prepare your own skincare, and still look like the final boss in a tea commercial. And if someone asks your secret, smile darkly, brush your hair, and mutter something cryptic about leftovers. Your fingers reach for a small ceramic jar, the lid still warm from resting near the brazier. Inside, thick and golden, is camellia oil, Tsubakia bura. Tonight, it's your conditioner, your hair serum, your everything. You dip your fingers in and scoop just enough to warm between your palms. The scent is subtle, earthy, and faintly floral, like petals after rain. You tilt your head forward and begin combing the oil through your hair, slow strokes, from crown to tip. The strands surrender, loosening, aligning. The oil coats them without greasiness. Under candlelight, your hair gleams like lacquerware. In Edo, Japan, hair is a billboard. It tells people whether you're married, single, widowed, or pretending not to be any of those. And with every comb stroke, you're not just grooming, you're sculpting identity. Camellia oil is harvested from seeds of the flowering camellia plant, native to Japan. The process is laborious. Seeds are hand-collected, dried, pressed, and filtered, often in winter, when the oil thickens and clings more richly. This oil isn't just beauty folklore, it's biochemistry. Rich in oleic acid and antioxidants, it mimics the natural oils of your scalp and helps keep moisture locked in. Even modern salons would raise a conditioned eyebrow in approval. You run a fine-toothed comb, cushy, through your hair. Wooden, smooth, slightly curved, it's coated in oil too, to prevent snagging. As you detangle, you massage your scalp, encouraging circulation. It's part ritual, part necessity. Because soon, you'll twist your hair into one of several elaborate styles, depending on your status and patience levels. Tonight, maybe a shimoda, high, knotted, secured with pins. Or maybe the softer marumage, favored by mature married women, round like a coiled dumpling. Whatever the shape, the base is always the same, slick, oiled hair that holds like sculpted dough. The fun, or exhausting, part? Most women didn't redo their hair every day. Once styled, it had to last several nights, even through sleep. That's where the takamakura comes in, a high wooden headrest with a tiny cushion that keeps your hair untouched while your neck tries not to scream. Imagine balancing your blowout on a teacup all night. Now imagine doing it during an earthquake. You've got your camellia oil, your pins, your comb, and if you're fancy, maybe some starch or wax to hold down stubborn strands. A full hairstyle could take hours. Many women visited specialized hairdressers, kamiyui, who not only styled hair but also doubled as neighborhood therapists. Gossip flowed faster than the oil. And this oil wasn't just for aesthetics. It doubled as a protective agent. Against the wind. Against lice. Against, let's say, surprise encounters in communal spaces. Some women even used it as a makeup remover or to polish wooden combs and mirrors. 1 bottle, 10 uses. Take that, overpriced 3-in-1 shampoo. Quirky tidbit for your sleepy head. Edo courtesans oiran sometimes oiled their hair so heavily that they had to use rice paper collars to catch the drips. These women had hairstyles taller than your pillow and heavier than your best intentions. Their hair was legend, art, and practical neck training all in one. Historians still argue whether camellia oil was equally popular across all classes or mostly reserved for those with the coin and time to indulge. Certainly, peasant women didn't spend hours styling their hair before feeding chickens. But even in humbler homes, a drop of oil meant pride, care, and a dash of self-respect. You take one last pass through your hair with the comb. It's smooth, tucked, and luminous. You set the comb on the lacquer tray and examine the strands between your fingers, none broken, none coarse. Victory! Outside, the streets hum with soft footsteps and the creak of carts. Inside, your scalp tingles in that smug, clean way that only comes from doing something very old, very odd, and very effective. You lean back on your cushion, careful not to touch your fresh updo to anything, and wonder what a modern shampoo ad would look like here. Probably someone flinging oil across a garden in slow motion while a shamisen plays. And you'd buy it. You open a drawer that smells faintly of cedar and lavender, and there it is, a delicate packet wrapped in fine washi paper, tied with a thin red string. Inside, the legendary nightingale droppings. Dried, powdered, and weirdly revered. Yes, tonight, you're putting bird poop on your face. You probably won't survive this in modern company without raised eyebrows or maybe a wellness brand sponsorship, but in Edo, Japan, it's perfectly reasonable skincare. You shake a little of the soft, ivory powder into a shallow dish. It's light, nearly weightless, and once mixed with warm water, forms a creamy paste. There's no harsh scent, thanks to a laborious drying and sanitizing process over charcoal, and when you press it to your face, it feels soothing. Cooling, even. Like a whisper of absurdity dabbed gently onto your cheeks. This isn't some urban legend. The use of yugisu no fun, nightingale feces, dates back to earlier centuries and was particularly beloved by geisha and kabuki actors who needed to strip heavy white makeup without stripping their skin. The droppings contain natural enzymes, particularly guanine, that helped exfoliate and brighten the skin. Not to mention a touch of ammonia, for just the right sting of effectiveness. It's like a chemical peel, if that chemical was found on a tree branch at 4 a.m. You gently smooth the paste across your cheeks, forehead, and nose, letting it settle like a clay mask. And while it dries, you have a moment to appreciate the strangeness of this ritual. Sourcing poop from nightingales, specifically the Japanese bush warbler, feeding them carefully curated rice bran, then collecting their droppings on sheets of paper. Talk about job dedication. The powder was then dried, sterilized, and crushed into a fine dust that could be stored for months. In elite beauty circles, it was considered premium skincare, expensive, rare, and very much in demand. Women would barter for tiny jars of it, and merchants would carry it between provinces in hidden pouches. One fringe tidbit: in some temples, monks even used the dried droppings to clean sacred statues. So yes, your glowing face now shares a skincare routine with a 1,000-year-old Buddha. No pressure. Historians still argue whether the paste was mostly for cleansing, lightening, or just exfoliating. It likely did all three, but the exact motivations, vanity, ritual, or mere practicality, blur over time. What's clear is that women who used it often glowed under candlelight in that soft, powdered way Edo poets loved to immortalize. You close your eyes. The mask tightens slightly as it dries. Your skin pulses faintly beneath it, as if unsure whether it should be offended or grateful. While the paste sets, you reflect on another benefit. In a world without retinol or glycolic acid, this was pretty advanced. The enzymes in the droppings helped break down dead skin, remove old cosmetics, and even soften fine lines. Kabuki actors, covered nightly in thick oshiroi foundation, swore by it. And yes, there were cheaper substitutes, ground azuki beans, flour, or just hot water and determination. But the nightingale mask, that was luxury. And you're wearing it like a queen in a thatched roof spa. When it's time to rinse, you use cool water and a gentle cloth. The paste melts away easily, leaving no residue. You pat your face dry and pause. It feels lighter. Your skin, smooth, cool, oddly elastic. You peer into the mirror again, half expecting to see feathers. Instead, you see clarity. Another joke from the communal baths comes to mind: only the ugliest birds sing the prettiest songs. And their poop. Even better. You laugh softly. Somewhere outside, a nightingale actually chirps. You place the dish back in the drawer, careful not to spill a grain. In Edo, waste is frowned upon, even luxury waste. Especially luxury waste that fell from a bird onto a carefully positioned square of paper. And though it sounds absurd, there's something oddly meditative about it all. The meticulous process. The reverence for the odd. The refusal to waste anything with even a whisper of potential. You sit back, skin fresh, neck relaxed, candle flickering low, and think, sometimes, beauty means saying yes to the ridiculous. Because sometimes, the ridiculous works. You lean toward the mirror again, squinting slightly, only to remember this mirror isn't glass. It's polished bronze. You don't quite see yourself. You see a soft blur, a vague ghost of a face surrounded by candlelight. Perfect. Less detail, more imagination. Very on brand for the Edo period. You pick up a tiny lacquered box. Inside, a creamy red paste. Your lip tint, your blush, your evening smile all in one. It's beni, a pigment extracted from safflower petals, and it's more precious than gold by weight. You dab your finger in and pat it gently onto your lips. The cool lacquer against your fingertip makes you shiver, just a little. The pigment sinks in, blooming faintly like the blush of plum blossoms in early spring. But this isn't your average lipstick moment. This stuff stains. A single application can last hours, even through tea, meals, and small talk with judgmental in-laws. The color is subtle at first, sheer, pinkish red, but build it up and it glows like lacquered wood under lantern light. You pat a bit more onto your cheeks, blending quickly before it sets. The heat of your fingers brings out its shine. And just like that, you're luminous. Not flashy. Just pleasantly alarming. The process of making beni is excruciatingly meticulous. Thousands of safflower petals are soaked, fermented, and pressed repeatedly to extract just a few grams of usable pigment. This paste is then brushed onto sheets of washi paper in multiple thin layers. When dried, the result is a hard film that, when moistened, yields that glossy red hue. You're not wearing makeup. You're wearing labor. One elite practice, favored by geisha and upper-class ladies, involved wetting the dried beni sheet with a dab of water, and then sipping the color straight off the paper, yes, off the paper, with tiny brushes or fingertips. It's makeup and performance in one, like eating your own lipstick off a watercolor palette. And here's a little quirky side note. The word for safflower in Japanese is benibana, but beni itself can also mean deep red or affection. So in a way, you're painting yourself in love. Sleepy, powdered love. Historians still argue whether beni was worn for beauty, ritual, or rebellion. Certainly, courtesans used it for allure. But there's evidence that older women wore it simply to look alive in the dim interiors of tatami rooms, where only the occasional beam of sunlight told you if someone had passed out or passed away. The beni you're using now is middle grade, affordable, usable, and not laced with lead, unlike some unfortunate Western counterparts from the same era. Still, the highest quality beni, the kind that shimmered green in the right light, was reserved for elite women and performers. They'd pay a small fortune for a single dried sheet, protect it like treasure, and even pass down unfinished sheets to daughters. You glance again at the compact. It catches the candlelight and flares for a moment, bright, proud, defiant. In some districts, it was said that a woman's skill could be judged not by how much beni she wore, but how precisely she applied it. Too heavy, and you looked desperate. Too faint, and you looked half dead. Just right, and people offered you mochi without asking. Some women, especially in high-class pleasure quarters, would trace their lower lips with beni and leave the upper lip bare, a subtle code to indicate rank, mystery, or just that they didn't feel like finishing the job that day. You, of course, go full lips. It's your night. You tuck the lacquer box back into the drawer. Somewhere beneath it lies another compact, half-used, stained with fingerprints from a different time. You wonder if someone else stared into this same bronze mirror, adjusting their tint under the same kind of flickering candlelight. You feel the pigment settle on your lips, dry slightly, and leave behind a soft, waxy velvet. The kind of texture that makes you purse your lips just to feel it. You do, and you smile at your reflection, or rather, at the idea of your reflection. Because in this bronze mirror world, you're less of a person and more of a dream in red. You roll your shoulders and reach into a bamboo tray, fingers brushing against rows of fine sticks, thin, blackened, faintly sweet. These are not incense. Not chopsticks. They're toothbrushes. Technically, each is a slender twig from the kuramoji tree, fragrant, antiseptic, and just the right amount of bendy. Tonight, it's time to brush your teeth, Edo style. You select a fresh stick and begin chewing one end gently. The fibers soften, fray, and bloom into a bristled tip, not unlike a broom used by forest sprites. The taste is subtly herbal, with a whisper of lemon and spice. You work it across your teeth, massaging gums and scrubbing the corners of your mouth. No mint. No foam. Just wood and rhythm. Dental hygiene wasn't an afterthought in Edo, Japan. People took it seriously, especially those in urban centers. Rotten teeth weren't just unattractive, they could be a social liability. Bad breath. Instant gossip. Yellow teeth. A sign you didn't know how to live. Many carried their fudigi, these wooden brushes, with them, pulling them out after meals like status symbols with bristles. Public brushing was normal, sometimes even elegant. Think less airport bathroom and more street corner tea ceremony. Some of the more refined brushes were made from willow or camellia branches. For the rich or very vain, silver-plated handles existed. But for you tonight, kuramoji will do just fine. You dip the bristled end in a tiny ceramic pot of fine charcoal powder. This is your toothpaste, a mix of burnt shells, ash, salt, and the occasional crushed medicinal herb. The texture is gritty, like sand at low tide, but the effect is oddly satisfying. As you scrub, your teeth feel smoother, your gums more awake, your soul lightly exfoliated. You spit gently into a wooden basin, rinse with cool tea, and run your tongue across your teeth. Clean. Polished. Faintly smoky. Now, time for the finishing touch, ohaguro. You slide open a small tin. Inside, a dark, inky liquid. Iron filings mixed with vinegar and tea, sometimes perfumed, always a little alarming. You take a slim brush and dip it in the mixture, lifting it with care. Tonight, you're blackening your teeth. That's right. Jet black. Glossy. Reflective. Chic, if you ask someone from 1782. Ohaguro wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a signal. Married women, geisha, and certain samurai applied it to show status, maturity, and loyalty. Some claimed it prevented tooth decay, thanks to its iron content and sealing properties. Others believed it warded off evil. Either way, black teeth meant you'd made it, or at least faked it convincingly. You draw the brush across each tooth, methodically. The liquid clings, dries quickly, and leaves a mirror-dark shine. The smell is odd, metallic with a vinegar tang, but it fades. You look in the bronze mirror again. A smile of shadows stares back. Now, this might sound like a nightmare from a modern dental commercial. But to Edo sensibilities, white teeth looked animalistic. Like bones. Or exposed rice. Not exactly alluring. Black teeth, though? That was poise. That was Polish. That was power. And here's your quirky tidbit. During the peak of the ohaguro trend, women would reapply their tooth lacquer every few days. Some even added glittery pigments or subtle fragrance to the mix. A well-maintained smile could sparkle in firelight not from whiteness, but from depth. Historians still argue whether the practice began as a dental health solution or a cultural beauty rebellion. Some trace it back to court ladies in the Heian period, while others suggest it evolved as a way to distinguish humans from evil spirits who, in folklore, had white fangs and no sense of hygiene. You rest the brush, now dark-tipped, back in its tray. Your lips, still faintly tinged with benny, curve into a grin that only the bold would appreciate. Some might find the idea grotesque. Others, empowering. But in this moment, it's intimate, just you, a cup of tea, and a smile that echoes centuries. You reach for the lid of the tin, sealing it with a soft click. The ink inside will thicken by morning. Like everything else, it needs care, attention, and the occasional vinegar bath. You exhale slowly, teeth hidden once more behind calm lips. Your breath smells faintly of charcoal and camellia. Your gums tingle from the brushwork. And behind your smile, there's the quiet satisfaction of having done something strange, slow, and meaningful. A beauty ritual that's both armor and art. Even if no one sees it tonight but your reflection and your reflection's oddly polished teeth. You press your palm to your cheek and pause, listening. The quiet hum of crickets, the rustle of wind through shji screens, the faint creak of wood beneath your feet. It's the hour for hair care, a nightly battle against tangles, gravity, and vanity. You reach for your comb, not plastic, not metal, but boxwood, suge, warm and smooth to the touch. It's been soaking all day in camellia oil. You lift it to your scalp and begin drawing it slowly through your hair. The sensation is instant, soothing, almost hypnotic. The oil glides along your strands, leaving behind a silken sheen. And the scent, deep, floral, and just the right kind of sleepy. You don't brush for detangling. You brush for discipline. In Edo, Japan, hair was a canvas. A daily masterpiece. A status symbol louder than speech. Hairstyles, nihongami, weren't just decorative, they were declarations. Unmarried? There's a style. Married? A different one. High-ranking courtesan? Prepare for hair architecture. Tonight, your style is simple. You're not building a temple on your head. Just smoothing it, oiling it, coaxing it into sleep. Camellia oil, Tsubaki Abura, is the quiet hero here. Rich in oleic acid and vitamins, it coats each strand without greasiness. It repels lice, a real win back then, tames flyaways, and leaves a glassy finish that glows under lantern light. Edo women guarded their bottles jealously, even pouring a drop into comb sheaths to keep the teeth supple and fragrant. Your fringe tidbit for tonight? The act of hair combing was often ritualized before bed. Not just hygiene, but intention. Some mothers combed their daughters' hair as a way of passing on luck. Lovers combed each other's hair in stolen moments. And widows. They combed slowly, often in silence, sometimes while whispering to the dead. You run the comb once more, letting the teeth press gently into your scalp. It's like a lullaby in motion. Historians still argue whether elaborate Edo hairstyles were mainly for social signaling or artistic expression. Probably both. Samurai daughters spent hours training in updos. Courtesans had personal hairdressers. Some styles took so long to create and involved so many pins and wires that women slept on special wooden neck pillows to preserve the architecture overnight. You try to imagine resting your head on a tiny wooden support while balancing a sculpture of waxed braids and lacquered ornaments. Pillow fights. Not an Edo thing. You set the comb down on a folded cloth, and examine the shine left behind in your hair. It reflects the candlelight like lacquerware. Your fingers trail through the soft strands, and for a moment, you feel less like a person and more like something curated. The oil absorbs slowly, and you resist the urge to wipe your hands. The slight tackiness reminds you, this is luxury. This is commitment. There's also a functional reason behind the daily oiling, besides shine and style. Edo air, especially in cities like Kyoto or Edo, now Tokyo, was dry in winter and dusty in summer. The oil helped protect hair from breaking and drying out. And for those who wore wigs or added hairpieces, yes, very common, it kept the natural hair pliable and easy to tuck away. And here's a detail you didn't ask for but now can't you know. Some women collected shed hair in tiny silk pouches, storing it for possible reuse. Nothing was wasted. Even vanity had its economy. As your hair settles into a soft curtain behind your back, you breathe in the lingering floral scent. The camellia lingers. So does the quiet. So does the calm. You pull it back loosely with a silk ribbon, nothing tight or structured. Just something to tell the strands, hold together, please, as you slip further into the soft margins of night. Another stroke of the comb. Another minute. Another part of you prepared for dreams, as generations have before brushed, oiled, gathered, silent. You sit back on your heels, palms resting lightly on your thighs. Your hair's smooth, your lips are tinted, your teeth are, well, midnight gloss. But now it's time to dress. Not to go out, of course. You're preparing for bed, which means slipping into something that whispers instead of shouts, your yukata. You reach for it, lightweight, cotton, indigo dyed, and worn thin in all the right places. You shake it out gently. The fabric releases the scent of sun-dried cloth and faint traces of cedar from the chest where it lived all day. Slipping into a yukata isn't just putting on a robe. It's like stepping into a breath. It hangs from your shoulders with just enough structure to feel intentional, but none of the stiffness of formal kimono. There are no embroidered crests, no silk linings, no layers. Just you and indigo cotton. You wrap the right side over the left, always right over left. Left over right is reserved for the dead. You don't tempt fate in these parts. The sash, or obi, tonight is soft, no stiff knots, just a loose tie that will hold through sleep but won't wake you up in a chokehold at 3 a.m. You smooth the front of the robe, admiring how the indigo glows softly in low light. There's a reason this color was everywhere in Edo, Japan. It was durable, resisted insects, and didn't show grime from soot or sweat. But it was also beautiful. Poets wrote verses about it. Dyers guarded their formulas like sacred scrolls. And here's your fun fringe fact. The indigo used back then wasn't just a dye, it was a mild antiseptic. People believed that wearing indigo-dyed clothing could prevent infections, calm rashes, and even ward off snakes. In other words, your bedtime outfit is also part of your skincare routine. Eat your heart out, modern loungewear. As you adjust the hem, you feel a difference in weight around the seams. That's because some yukata had tiny pouches sewn into them, hidden compartments to tuck in charms, combs, or the occasional emergency hairpin. You check yours. One corner feels heavier than the rest. A tiny sachet of dried chrysanthemum petals, faintly crumbling, releasing an earthy scent that trails behind your movement like a shadow. Historians still argue whether the yukata began purely as a bathhouse garment or evolved from ceremonial court robes repurposed for private life. Its name literally means bathing cloth, but by the mid-Edo period, it had morphed into an everyday robe for summer, sleep, and lounging. Think of it as the love child of a spa towel and haute couture. You adjust the collar slightly so it rests just beneath your throat, not too high, not too revealing. Just enough to feel held. The robe doesn't cling. It floats. You walk across the room, and the fabric brushes against your calves like a memory. There's no elastic waistband, no zippers, no buttons. Only folds and ties and breath. Your sleeves swish as you sit again, arms resting comfortably in your lap. They're long, but not the exaggerated waterfall kind reserved for unmarried women or theater performers. Just long enough to feel graceful when you reach for a cup of tea or swat at a curious moth. You stretch your legs and admire your own silhouette against the paper wall. It's gentle, softened, human in the most forgiving sense. A detail many forget: sleeping garments were taken just as seriously as formal dress in Edo, Japan. Not because someone might see you, but because you were expected to respect your own rest. Preparing for sleep wasn't a collapse. It was a ritual. A return to self. The yukata wasn't just about comfort. It was about intention. Your laugh tonight? It comes at the thought of how many hours we now spend in pajamas that are mismatched, synthetic, or worse, coated in logos. Meanwhile, here you are, dressed for bed in an outfit that could survive a poetry contest. And here's the kicker. Some women deliberately chose yukata with subtle patterns, waves, cranes, or seasonal plants visible only in certain angles of light. Beauty meant secrets. And what could be more elegant than being the only one who knows your robe has hidden plum blossoms embroidered in the weave? You run your hands down your thighs, smoothing the fabric again, feeling the texture, fine, faintly ridged from hand dyeing. It holds a quiet warmth from your skin. There's no itch, no cling. Only cotton and breath and the faint smell of camellia oil. Tonight, your yukata becomes your second skin. Not tight. Not loud. Just there. Like moonlight filtered through paper walls. And in this moment, you understand, comfort was always fashionable. You stretch your arms high above your head, slow and deliberate, letting your shoulders crack just enough to feel alive. The yukata shifts with you, soft and weightless, but now your thoughts turn toward fragrance. No spritz bottles. No rollerballs. Tonight, you scent yourself the Edo way, through smoke. You kneel beside a small incense brazier. It's squat, round, and made of bronze, the kind with claw feet and a dragon swirling up one side. You lift the lid and inside, white ash waits, smooth, rippled, lovingly raked like a miniature Zen garden. You dig a little hollow in the center and tuck in a tiny coal. With practiced fingers, you balance a thin mica plate above the glowing ember. No flames. Just heat. Then, you reach for the treasure, a small wooden box of Japanese incense. But not the kind you burn like a stick. These are scented woods: aloe, sandalwood, clove, cinnamon, tiny chips stored like rare gems. You choose one. Kiara, the rarest, the most prized. Dark, resinous, almost mythical. It cost more than gold in its day, and even now, it smells like something meant for emperors. You place it gently on the mica plate. It doesn't burn. It releases. Slowly. Subtly. The scent curls upward, not a punch in the face like modern perfumes, but a whisper behind the ear. It smells like temples, like memory, like something you forgot you missed. In Edo, Japan, fragrance wasn't for seduction. It was for refinement. Men and women scented their robes, their hair, even letters and poetry scrolls. You didn't wear a scent so others would smell it. You wore it so you would know it was there. You hold your sleeve over the smoke, allowing the fabric to catch the aroma. Then the other. Then the inside of the collar. You tilt your head and close your eyes. It's not just a ritual. It's a pause. A moment of private luxury. Your robes now carry the ghost of Kiara, and you, by association, feel quietly elevated. And here's your strange little fact for the night. Elite Edo citizens participated in KD, the Way of Incense, a kind of perfume-based game or meditation. Players sniffed different wood samples and tried to identify the ingredients, often blindfolded. It was less about winning and more about cultivating a refined nose. You weren't just well-scented. You were trained in scent, like a sommelier of invisible wine. Historians still argue whether KD was genuinely a widespread pastime or mostly confined to aristocrats and cultural purists. There's evidence of merchant-class families adopting the practice, albeit in more modest forms. Fragrance wasn't always about flash, it was about knowing. About being the sort of person who could detect a garwood from Taiwan versus one from Vietnam. Now that's niche. You lift the mica plate slightly and let the last of the smoke curl out. The room now smells faintly of earth and spice and nighttime. You didn't perfume your skin directly, that would be uncouth. Instead, you've perfumed your world. Your clothes. Your sleep. You're not scented. You're imbued. The ritual done, you return the box of incense to its place with reverence. Each chip is a meditation. Each session, a small reminder that even silence deserves a scent. You imagine the old beauty houses in Kyoto or Edo, where courtesans would pass through rooms, each trailing a different signature scent. Not overpowering, just memorable. You remember reading that in certain brothels, regular clients could be identified by the smell they left on the bedding. It wasn't gossip. It was art. You raise your sleeve to your face again. Still there. Just enough. Like the memory of a dream as you wake. There's a quiet joy in knowing that you'll fall asleep wrapped in aroma, not doused but brushed with it. A veil. A mood. In a world where scent was art and silence was music, tonight, you are both. You press your palms together gently, as if to seal the moment. The incense fades into the folds of your robe, leaving behind something intangible, more memory than smell. You're almost ready for sleep, but there's one final act in this private theater of beauty, your face. No jade rollers. No vibrating wands. Just a tiny pot of night cream Edo style. You reach for a ceramic jar, no bigger than your fist. The lid creaks softly as you twist it off, revealing a thick, slightly yellowish paste. It smells faintly of rice, citrus, and something woody, yuzu, perhaps, or dried orange peel. This is your yakuigusuri, a homemade medicated cream passed down in notebooks and gossip. It's a blend of rice bran, sesame oil, crushed pearl, and beeswax, or at least tonight's version is. Recipes varied as wildly as modern DIY Pinterest disasters. You dip a fingertip into the cool surface and press it to your cheek. It melts slowly, warmth turning solid into silk. You pat, not rub. Edo women knew better than to tug at their skin. Gravity is undefeated, after all. What's the science? Rice bran, known as nuka, is packed with antioxidants, vitamin E, and ferulic acid. It softens skin, evens tone, and acts as a natural sun filter. And yes, they knew this. Not in molecular terms, but in results. Smooth skin meant higher status, better marriage prospects, and less chance of being mistaken for a ghost by your own neighbors. Here's a quirky little gem. Some women added powdered nightingale droppings to their facial pastes. Yes, bird poop. Why? Enzymes. The urea and guanine gave skin a bright, luminous finish, like a gentle chemical peel. It was especially popular with kabuki actors and geisha who needed to remove heavy white makeup without scrubbing their faces raw. You chuckle as you dot your chin with the creamy balm. You, too, have entered the legacy of weird but practical beauty. Maybe not the bird part, yet. You massage gently upward along your jaw, behind your ears, over your brow. Not just skincare. This is tactile meditation. You can almost hear the sound of your skin drinking in the moisture, a soft sigh beneath the surface. Historians still argue whether Edo beauty creams were primarily medicinal or cosmetic. The lines blur. After all, beauty was health. Pale, clear skin wasn't just pretty, it meant you weren't out in the fields, laboring under the sun, acquiring freckles like common currency. In the bathhouses, women would swap recipes like spells. Add crushed lotus root. Boil peach bark first. Don't use too much sesame oil, it attracts ants. Each blend became personal, a kind of alchemical fingerprint. You weren't just applying cream. You were declaring allegiance to your lineage, your temperament, your station. You close your eyes and feel the balm sink in. Your cheeks hum with warmth. A little dewy, a little sticky, but not unpleasant. You look like someone who's been well loved by their own hands. In a strange twist, men in the Edo period also had their own skincare routines, especially samurai. Weathered skin wasn't always a badge of honor. Many kept small tins of rice paste to soothe shaving cuts or sunburns. Masculinity, it seems, was no excuse for bad pores. You dab the last bit of cream across your temples and smooth what remains onto the backs of your hands. Can't forget those. They age just as rudely. Then, the final touch, you rub your palms together briskly and hover them over your face, not touching, just letting the warmth radiate. It's an invisible mask. A seal. A quiet, wordless "you've done enough today." And with that, your face, like the rest of you, is ready for dreams. Nourished. Scented. Softened. Not for anyone else. Just for you. You sit motionless for a few breaths, face gently glowing, sleeves pulled around your wrists like lazy waterfalls. Outside, the wind rustles the bamboo again. Somewhere far off, a shutter clacks. The city sleeps, but you're still tethered to ritual. There's one final act before you lie down, and it's perhaps the strangest, yet most charming, of all. You open a narrow wooden drawer beneath your floor mat and pull out your nighttime okazuri scented slippers. Not just for keeping your feet warm, but for keeping them polite. In Edo homes, it was unthinkable to go barefoot at night without purpose. So these soft, cloth-lined slippers carried the scent of sandalwood and charcoal, and a touch of camphor, just enough to discourage pests. Footwear, but make it perfumed. You slip your feet in. The warmth is instant, like sliding into the memory of a foot bath. The soles are padded with tightly woven straw and a thin lining of cotton, more supportive than you expect, but still whisper quiet. A reminder, in this house, you move like steam, not like thunder. Now you move to the corner where your sleeping space waits. A tatami mat base, and atop it, your futon, not the clunky couch kind, but a sleek roll of padded cotton, smoothed out and fluffed just enough to cradle your spine. Pillows in Edo, Japan were often small and wooden, with a hollow base or a pouch of fragrant herbs tucked inside. Tonight, yours is lavender scented with a sprinkle of dried citrus peel. But before you settle in, there's one last thing. You reach into a small lacquered box and draw out a fine-toothed comb. Not for styling. For scalp health. In the dim light, you run the comb slowly through your hair, starting from the crown and moving down, then behind your ears, and finally the nape of your neck. It's not just grooming, it's massage. The wooden teeth press into pressure points, easing the tension held tight from the weight of the day and from that mildly absurd forehead wax earlier. Back then, this final brushing was non-negotiable. Women believed it stimulated circulation, distributed oil evenly, and encouraged healthy growth. Also, it discouraged lice, which, let's be honest, were not uncommon despite best efforts. And since combs were often dipped in camellia oil or scented with clove, your hair was left not only gleaming, but smelling faintly like a mysterious spice market. You pause and admire your reflection in the lacquered surface of the box. Soft light. Clear skin. Eyes heavy. You feel like a painting someone might hang in a tea house, serene, slightly amused, maybe a little dangerous if provoked. Historians still argue whether these evening grooming rituals were more for personal wellness or to maintain marital harmony, beauty as duty, or beauty as freedom. The line is blurry. In many households, especially among merchant families, women took pride in being self-sufficient in their appearance. Salons were a luxury, home rituals were the rule. And there's something fiercely gentle in that. You weren't preparing for performance. You were preparing for yourself. With the combing done, you tuck the tool back into its case, close the lid with a soft click, and slide it away. Your fingers trail across the floor as you lower yourself onto the futon, feeling your spine align like puzzle pieces. Your yukata loosens just slightly with gravity. You adjust it with a single practiced pull. As you lie back, your knees bend slightly. You shift your weight. The tatami creaks beneath you like an old friend whispering bedtime tales. The air smells faintly of incense, camellia, rice, and citrus. A fragrance collage of every step you've taken tonight. You've become your own lullaby. And one last curious tidbit before your eyes drift closed. Some people in Edo, Japan kept tiny caged crickets by their bedside. Not for pest control, but for the sound. A soft chirping rhythm that reminded them of riverbanks and fields. A lullaby from nature. You smile at the thought. No white noise machines. Just insects and intention. The room darkens. The air stills. Your rituals are complete. You are not just clean, you are curated. Not just scented, but steeped in tradition. And as your head nestles into the firm, herb-scented pillow, your body finally understands that it is safe. Rest is no longer a suggestion. It's a command wrapped in cotton and camellia oil. Your breath slows. Your limbs feel longer, heavier, softer. But before sleep truly claims you, the mind takes one last meandering stroll through memory, and tonight, it drifts toward the things you didn't use. The beauty tools hidden in drawers or quietly phased out. The ones too strange, too laborious, or just too misunderstood to make the cut in your modern regimen. You smile, remembering the first time you saw a Bintsukabura tin, traditional pomade used by kabuki actors and sumo wrestlers. Thick, greasy, and pine-scented, it was used not just for sculpting elaborate hair shapes but for holding them solid for days. And if you were a sumo, weeks. The substance itself looked like off-white wax, hard to the touch, but melted under warm fingers. You could rub it between your palms and feel it cling, like glue in disguise. Edo women used a much lighter version, mixed with fragrant oils and sometimes even citrus zest. Not for dramatic styles, but for controlling wisps and adding a gentle sheen. You once tried a vintage recipe. Once. Your hair smelled divine and looked decent for half a day, until it turned into a soft-serve tower and collected lint like a living museum exhibit. Historians still argue whether such heavy hairstyling was driven more by aesthetics or practicality. In a world with no hairdryers, hot tools, or keratin treatments, perhaps the only real control came through compression and grease. And commitment. Oh, the commitment. Beside that tin in your memory is a collection of strange metal contraptions, curling tongs heated over coals, delicate tweezers made of bamboo, even scalp prickers designed to improve blood flow by gently tapping the skull. Yes, that was a thing. You tried it once, too. It did wake you up. The fringe crowd of Edo beauty included more than a few oddballs. For example, there was a brief trend among upper-class women to use crushed wasp nests as a facial firming treatment. Rich in protein, they claimed. Definitely also rich in risk. And don't forget the eyebrow stencils, hand-carved wooden guides women used after shaving off their real brows to paint new ones higher on the forehead. Sound familiar? Yes, you've seen the TikTok girls do it too, minus the razor commitment. You remember how those stencils felt, solid but delicate, worn smooth at the edges. You'd hold it up like a mask, dabbing on charcoal paste or natural dye to shape your ideal arch. In Edo times, that arch moved with your age and station, low and round for girls, high and straight for mature women. The eyebrow was a literal timeline on your face. You almost giggle remembering how long it took you to wash it off the first time. Edo Cosmetics didn't mess around. Some used indigo extract, others iron oxide mixed with vinegar and egg whites. They were semi-permanent for a reason: reapplication was work. One scholarly theory even suggests these more difficult beauty tools functioned like social litmus tests. If you had the time, patience, and knowledge to use them correctly, you were signaling more than just looks. You were saying, "I belong here." But the line between personal ritual and performative tradition has always been thin. Some women rebelled. Quietly, of course. There are stories, almost rumors, of wives in merchant households who opted for short haircuts, unpainted teeth, and clean faces. Not because they were poor or sick, but because they simply didn't care to keep up. In a world where beauty was duty, that was a radical act. And yet, tonight, you're grateful for the ones who did keep up. Who left behind wooden combs stained with camellia oil, scrolls of hairpin designs, lip tints made from safflower and beetle shells. Every item a breadcrumb trail back to you, lying here, in a clean robe, under a scented quilt. You think of the hands that carved these tools, passed them down, misplaced them in drawers only to be rediscovered centuries later. Tools that whisper, "Try me, even now." Tools that remind you that beauty is never just about the result. It's about attention, care, a little absurdity, a little devotion. One last oddity drifts into your sleepy thoughts: a lacquered tray, found in the ruins of an Edo merchant's home, filled with tiny beauty charms, good luck tokens shaped like combs, lips, and mirrors. Not to be used, just kept. As if to say, may you always have time to take care of yourself. You nestle deeper into the futon, the pillow cradling your neck just right. The tools of beauty may change, but the need to feel human, cared for, and quietly radiant, that's eternal. The hum of the room settles into you now, as if the walls themselves have slowed their breathing to match yours. You could fall asleep right here, halfway between memory and comfort, but your mind, loyal night owl that it is, drifts once more, this time to the grand finale of Edo-era beauty, fragrance. You're not talking department store perfume here. No glossy counters, no spritz and run. This was a slower magic infused into your hair, your clothes, your space. In Edo, Japan, scent wasn't just decoration. It was character. A signature. A way of saying, "This is me," without ever speaking. You lift a small, lacquered box from beside your sleeping mat. Inside, KD tools. The way of fragrance. You've dabbled before, enough to know this wasn't just incense, it was ceremony. A refined, almost meditative practice of warming special woods until they released their scent, never burned, never rushed. You remove a tiny dish of mako powder, an odorless base used to gently heat scented chips. Then, with steady fingers, you place a sliver of agarwood on top. This particular piece is dark, resinous, and has the faint shape of a withered petal. It's rare, aged, and smells of sweet earth and temple corridors. As it warms, the room slowly fills with its story. A whisper of smoke, dry and complex. Not floral. Not musky. Something in between, like sandalwood wearing a silk robe after midnight. You don't sniff. You listen. Because KD is a listening art. You hear the scent, let it unfold in layers. First the high notes, sharp, fleeting. Then the body, deep, mellow. Finally, the afterscent, barely there. During the Edo period, fragrance was tightly regulated by class and occasion. Samurai families might use stronger, spicier blends, while merchant wives leaned toward light citrus and floral woods. Geisha preferred powdery notes with subtle sweetness, suggesting intimacy without promise. One mainstream custom was scenting the hem of one's kimono. Yes, the hem. Because as you walked through a room, the motion stirred the perfume, creating a soft wake of fragrance behind you. More effective than shouting, "Notice me," and considerably classier. But here's the quirky bit. Some Edo women used sachets of clove, dried citrus peel, and pine needles not only to scent their garments but to deter mosquitoes. Fashion meets function, once again. You wonder what your laundry would smell like if you swapped drier sheets for powdered pine bark. Historians still argue whether KD was ever truly accessible to common folk, or if it remained the domain of the elite. The tools were expensive, the woods rare. Yet recipes for simpler, homemade incense balls, called nerik, exist in old household records. Made from plum pulp, cinnamon, star anise, and honey, rolled and dried for weeks before use. A slow burn beauty, in every sense. You once tried making nerik from a modern recipe. It took a month. Your kitchen smelled like a love spell, and your landlord complained for 2 weeks. Worth it. The scent in your room deepens now, mingling with the lingering traces of camellia oil, rice balm, and citrus peel. You are wrapped in a bouquet of careful chaos. If someone were to walk in right now, they might say you smelled like an antique drawer in the best way possible. And here's something strangely beautiful. Edo lovers sometimes gifted each other pieces of fragrant wood. Not flowers. Not poems. Just a tiny, richly scented chip, stored in a silk pouch. That was intimacy unsaid, enduring, aromatic. You lie back once more, this time turning your face slightly toward the heat of the incense dish. Not close enough to inhale deeply, just enough to acknowledge it. A part of your atmosphere, like breath or moonlight. Maybe you weren't born in the Edo period. Maybe you wouldn't have survived all the rules and layers and impossible to remove eyeliner. But this quiet, fragrant ritual, you were made for this. The final curl of smoke rises, spirals, and vanishes into the dark. And just like that, you are scented, settled, and one breath closer to sleep. The incense thread fades, leaving behind the soft imprint of warmth in the air. You shift slightly under your quilt, the fabric whispering against your skin, and let your mind drift through the final tendrils of ritual. You've painted your face, combed your scalp, powdered, polished, and perfumed. So, what now? Now, we talk superstition. Because no beauty routine in Edo Japan was ever truly complete without a few nods to the spiritual. After all, what good is glowing skin if you wake up haunted? You reach under your pillow and find a small, embroidered charm omamori, stitched in gold thread on indigo silk. This one, gifted by a friend, is for health and sleep, though others might carry ones for beauty, love, or protection against, well, mirror demons. Yes, mirror demons. You raise an eyebrow, remembering that tale. In some Edo households, it was customary to cover mirrors at night, especially those placed near the bed. The belief was simple: mirrors, like water, could become gateways for wandering spirits, or worse, reflect your soul while it slept. And a restless soul made for restless skin. Or something like that. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were rooted in Shinto animism or adapted folk traditions, but one thing is clear: beauty and spirit were deeply intertwined. If you looked radiant, it meant your inner balance was intact. If your hair thinned, your skin dulled, or your face looked drawn, well, something was off. A spirit? A bad dream? A karmic imbalance? Either way, time to see your local healer or pray at a shrine. You chuckle softly, imagining a 21st century dermatologist performing an exorcism between microneedling sessions. Other midnight beauty superstitions abounded. It was said that trimming your nails at night invited death into your family. So nails were filed, not clipped, after sundown. And if you found a single white hair on your head, pluck it, and 3 more would rise in its place, angrier, somehow. But not all superstitions were ominous. Some were oddly hopeful. Like the belief that sleeping with a sachet of cherry blossoms under your pillow would bring dreams of your future lover. Or that whispering your wish into a camellia blossom before bed could shift your fortunes by morning. You've tried it. The results? Ambiguous. But the camellia was lovely. Then there was the hair-tying charm, a red silk thread looped around a single hair before bed. The next morning, if the thread remained, your love was true. If not, well, maybe it just slipped off. Maybe. That's what you told yourself, anyway. You glance across your room, eyes lingering on the edge of the window screen. Paper, wood, and silence. You imagine a time when every creak in the floor, every draft of air, every flicker of candlelight felt like a conversation with something unseen. Not spooky, just present. A gentle reminder that your beauty was never yours alone, it was shared with the seasons, the spirits, and maybe even the ancestors watching from that covered mirror. And speaking of ancestors, there was a curious tradition tied to the waxing moon. On the night of its first crescent, women would rise before dawn to cleanse their faces in cold water mixed with moon-reflected sake. Why? Because the moon, reborn, was believed to lend its renewing energy to your skin. Also, it was a good excuse to splash your face with expensive alcohol. You tried it once, your cheeks glowed, and you smelled like a polite party guest for hours. There's something comforting about these old beliefs. Not in whether they're true, but in how they suggest care, attention, ritual. The idea that your body is worth tending to with more than just product, but with intention, prayer, and a little moonlight. Tonight, you do one last thing. You hum. Softly, almost without realizing. A lullaby you once heard in a documentary about geisha. The tune is simple, repetitive, designed for soothing, not performing. Just the way you like it. The vibration of your voice settles into your chest. You feel it before you hear it. And just for a moment, you're no longer a guest in this old world. You're part of it. Your pillow welcomes your head like an old friend. The room sighs with you. The charm under your pillow is warm from your hand. You've covered mirrors, appeased spirits, avoided cursed nail clippings, and flirted with cherry blossom sachets. You've done more than a beauty routine tonight. You've danced a centuries-old waltz with quiet ghosts. And now, you're ready to rest. You lie there, a quiet creature folded into the softness of the night, and you feel it, the final unraveling. All the knots you didn't know you were holding, loosening with each slow breath. The beauty rituals are done. The room has dimmed to hush. But there's still one layer left, isn't there? The one you can't apply or wash away. The one that lives just beneath the surface, beauty as identity. In Edo, Japan, who you were shaped how you could look, and vice versa. Beauty was never neutral. It was status. It was survival. It was sometimes even protest in disguise. You remember standing in front of an old ukiyo-e print in a museum once, an image of a woman with an impossibly elaborate coiffure, her robes so patterned and heavy they seemed almost cruel. She was smiling. But the caption said she was a ijo, a high-ranking courtesan. And suddenly the smile changed. Not a pose. A performance. The ijo weren't just women of the pleasure quarters. They were fashion icons, cultural tastemakers, and often more literate than many men of their class. Their beauty was armor, art, weaponry, even. They were expected to master hundreds of aesthetic details, how to tie an obi, how to fold a fan, how to paint a lip that said "come closer" without speaking. And here's where it gets complicated. These women often had more freedom to shape their visual identity than wives in respectable households. While a merchant's wife might be expected to remain modest, her hair flat, her kimono muted, a ijo could glow within the confines of performance. Her beauty was her currency, and her downfall, Historians still debate whether this was empowerment or exploitation, or something messier in between. A kind of gilded agency, limited by walls but rich in nuance. And then, of course, there were the rebels. Quiet ones, usually. You think of women who wore men's yukata in private, of actors' wives who adopted stage makeup just to feel dazzling, of older widows who returned to hair dyes and silken powders after years of mourning. Beauty as reclamation. One of your favorite tales is about an Edo midwife, unnamed, unglamorous, who reportedly made her own lipstick from persimmon skins and ash, just for herself. No clients. No ceremonies. Just her, in her cramped wooden home, applying color in a broken mirror. Because she could. That sticks with you. It reminds you that even in a world of rules, there's always someone who paints outside the lines, sometimes literally. And that maybe the truest beauty isn't the kind that gets noticed. Maybe it's the kind done in secret, by candlelight, for no one else. You've done that, haven't you? That quiet getting ready for nothing. The hair curled just because. The face mask worn in solitude. The perfume dabbed behind the ear on a day with no appointments. You are, in that way, very Edo. And like them, you are also part of something larger. A lineage of people, mostly women, often invisible, who've whispered care into their skin, their hair, their sleep. Who've passed down combs and cautions, superstitions and scents. Who've made the ordinary sacred through repetition. Beauty, in Edo times, wasn't just what others saw. It was a kind of slow language. A conversation between you and your body. A promise, remade each morning, sealed each night. And tonight, you've kept it. So, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath becomes slow and steady, take one last moment to feel it. Not the products, not the history, but the thread that ties you to all of it. The deep knowing that you, in your simplest form, are part of a centuries-long ritual. That sleep, too, is a form of beauty. And now, you're ready. Let yourself drift now. There's nothing left to do. The dishes are quiet. The street outside has fallen away. Even the clock seems unsure whether to keep ticking. You're wrapped in layers of comfort, scented air, soft shadows, gentle silence. Breathe in. A little deeper. Let it fill the space behind your ribs. Breathe out. Let it carry the rest of the day with it. There's no wrong way to rest. No checklist to meet. Just the steady settling of you into yourself, like ink soaking into rice paper. Slow. Complete. The women of Edo would have done the same. Not all of them. Not every night. But some, somewhere, would have slipped under their quilts, the faint trace of camellia oil still on their fingertips, the scent of plum incense curled around the corners of the room. Just like you. Outside your window, the moon hangs like a forgotten coin. Cool, silver, steady. A reminder that everything turns. The beauty, the worry, the ritual. It will all come again. But not now. Now is for letting go. Feel your spine lengthen as it melts into the mattress. Feel your face soften where your muscles used to hold it tight. You're not performing anymore. You're just here. Still. Safe. Beautiful in the quiet way no one else ever sees. Let the hush hold you. Let the dark cradle you. Let your dreams take their time. Sleep well, you timeless creature.